Son, and welcome to season 3 of the Black Women in Europe podcast. Thanks so much for listening in season 1 and season 2. Season 3 will not disappoint. Go to linktree/Black Women in Europe so we can be social. But thanks, and get ready for our next guest. 3, 2, 1. I am so excited, honored, and thrilled to be talking with Kelechi Okafor from the UK. If you don't know who she is, I don't know where you've been. She is super multi-talented and fascinating. And I'm just going to dive right in and say hello and then throw a bunch of questions at her, if that's okay with you, Kelechi.
Yes, more than okay. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Let me start. I wonder, did you get invited to the coronation?
Oh, well, you know what? No, I think my invite must have gotten lost in the post.
I wondered about that because then I wondered what you were going to wear. But what a spectacle. And what did you think of all of that?
I thought it was exactly that, a spectacle, a rather insensitive one when we consider that, a lot of people are having to resort to food banks in order to get food. We're apparently in a cost of living crisis, but £250 million was spent on the coronation. And for what? Just to see pomp and pageantry. For no reason, and knowing over the past few years how essentially racist they've proven themselves to be as an institution, I just didn't think it was the best use of our taxpayer funds, really, when people are struggling.
I don't know if people are aware how much people are struggling in the UK. Is it worse in certain regions? Can you tell if it's exacerbated post Brexit? The whole world is struggling, but nobody really thinks of the UK doing poorly.
Yeah, I think it's also because of, the PR of it and how much is suppressed in terms of the media not really wanting to talk about it, or, energy bills are, through the roof. You can't really call yourself, I think they said it's they said the third wealthiest country or in the developing world or something. So how is it that then everyday people are having to go to food banks to get food because they can't afford any food? So in case you I think you've got food banks in the US where people will take food that it cans and everything, and then you go and pick it up from there just so you have something to eat. So we don't have money to feed the people of this country, but we have money for somebody to ride around in a golden carriage wearing all of these crowns that are filled with jewels that are stolen. Everything about it just was so grotesque to me. It was almost like, oh well, you're suffering, that's your problem then. And I guess essentially it is our problem as the British public, because there has to come a point where you go, this is ridiculous, you're not using our money for that, stop it. But people aren't. And to answer your question, yes, there are areas where it's noticeably worse, especially up north in the north of England and things like that. The reason being, Westminster is in London. A lot of the businesses that drive Britain, I guess, are in London. But post Brexit, with everything that's happening, a lot of businesses are also leaving because suddenly the statutes and legislations change regarding how they can operate their businesses from here. So that Brexit whole thing was very spiteful, like cutting your nose off to spite your face, and it's the everyday people that are feeling the repercussions of that, because the people in government are still striking their deals behind the scenes where they remain paid, but everybody else is, scratching their heads as to how they're expected to keep paying for things where the wages haven't gone up, but the prices have gone up like ridiculously.
Well, I was living in the UK 4 years recently, and you had four elections. One of them was this was 2013 to 2017. So
Mm.
you can remember those four elections, and one of them was Brexit. And I know, and you mentioned like the PR. I think the PR got that vote, but people weren't thinking really long term. So how long has it been now? Because I can't remember what year exactly that's been. And what do you think? How long do you think it's going to be painful?
I think it'll be painful for a while, and I think this is why people are now trying to, or government is trying to sort of backtrack, but in a way that doesn't make it feel like Britain have lost everything. So officially, it was from the 31st of January 2020 that it was just like, that's it, that's what we're doing now. And imagine that. Then March 2020, we get hit with lockdown.
Uh,
So a lot of businesses are then, having to close and things like that. So it's been a very, very tough time. They couldn't have preempted COVID. Well, to be fair, like they did have a lot of warning prior to announcing lockdown. So there are so many instances where they could have not done this, but they used xenophobia, the hatred of people migrating over here, to really fuel people to agree with Brexit. And then now those same people are like, oh, I don't know, why can't I get eggs anywhere? Why can't I get blueberries anywhere? Why can't I this? Why can't I that? Because of what you voted for. And because it wasn't explained to you what exactly you were voting for, you're now stressed.
well, you know what? You probably, yeah. I didn't think about that availability of things like that. But where I'm based in Sweden, it's been tough with prices going up, um, more people being stressed about food, more help for food. Um, for families that need it. But we didn't have lockdown like you all did, and we didn't leave the EU. So I don't think so I'm just trying to imagine as people have been suffering and
Mm,
suffering in the States, like your suffering is just compounded. So
yes.
how's it been for someone like you, a creative person in the arts, an actress, a writer? What was that like to go through the pandemic and a mother?
Yes, it's been a really interesting time. Work-wise, I'm grateful. I've been all right for work, In fact, during 2020, I worked a lot, through Zoom and everything else when people are like, "Oh my God, racism exists." And so I was, doing a lot of talks, doing all of those things, but, naturally so people get bored because they don't want to do the work. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to fix the problem really. So I noticed that for myself and a lot of other creatives, or especially people who speak up in the anti-racism space, that it's gone very quiet because a lot of the money that was even pledged that companies and organizations were going to use to better themselves and their understanding of racism and how they support Black people and just non-white people, generally marginalized communities, they didn't do it. So
Okay, wait a
you
minute,
know
Kelechi. So this was part of, okay, yeah, whammy, that's right. Okay, January 2020 Brexit. Then March, boom, the pandemic lockdown, Black Lives Matter, everything. What you're saying, you were very active in that movement. Tell us about that. And you're saying the promises made then haven't been kept.
Yeah, I mean, the official Black Lives Matter UK movement, I wasn't integral. I wasn't a part of that. I just used my platforms to kind of speak up in terms of what's
Yes.
happening in the UK space and linking it to how it pertains to everything else happening worldwide. And I have been doing that for years. So I think it was more of a case of, you take care of your home, you look after your home until one day, or you look after your garden and you've been growing these beautiful flowers, and then one day people happen to pass by and they were like, oh my God, these beautiful flowers. I was essentially prepared for this conversation because I've been having this conversation. Whereas a lot of people, I think, found their voice during 2020 and have kind of ridden with that since. But I've always been saying, don't get it confused. Like, the UK has a racism problem. Of course it does,
You were
because
talking about it before it was fashionable to talk about it.
exactly. And it's been kind of when we look at America is a British colony, historically. So so when people think, oh, racism doesn't exist in Britain, it's like, how could that be possible when America is a British colony? So
I
there
tell people we learned everything from y'all. We're like
exactly
cousins, like
exactly
cousins or whatever. Yeah.
exactly that. And so when people come over here, they're like, oh, I see the way that racism is used here is used slightly differently. Okay, but it's just as deadly. Okay. So yeah, you start to kind of pick up on all of these things, but I was just glad that finally we were having a mainstream conversation, because prior to that, it's not really making the news. One of the most notorious racist killings that happened, I believe, in 1993, the murder of Stephen Lawrence, an 18-year-old from South London. He was traveling home one night with his friend. They were at a bus stop, and now we know, six attackers, white and racist men, boys, teenagers at the time themselves, came and they stabbed him to death For no reason. They didn't know him from anywhere. They didn't know him. They just decided that's what they wanted to do. And that really shook Britain up at the
Oh,
time. And why that was worse was because the police tried to suppress information, lose evidence, so many things. It then basically showed that the police in and of itself was institutionally racist as a result of how they dealt or mishandled that murder case. So 30 years on, the other day, it was revealed one of the names of the main attackers, in fact, the one that instigated it, but for 30 years, they never wanted to mention his name publicly in that way. In fact, they had him down as a witness as opposed to a suspect all of these years. So we marked his 30-year anniversary since his murder in April 22nd. We marked it. And the mayor of London came and he said that, the Macpherson report that was written as a result of the inquiry into the mishandling of the murder, he said that the report told us that the police force is institutionally racist. And he said, as far as he's concerned, the police force remains institutionally racist. It hasn't changed. And there was a lot of uproar about that on the news. Since then, we've heard so much more about ways in which, like, the Metropolitan Police, the police at large, it's festering, it's rotten. So Britain is having to wake up
wow.
against its own will. And I'm glad that I'm one of those people that's sort of like clanging the pots right by its ear.
Yes. So is that the poor soul? I remember watching, and this could be the least thing the thing that you're least interested in, but I did watch the three
Hmm.
part Harry and Meghan
Hmm.
documentary, and they went to a memorial service. It was that, but it wasn't the 30th because it was in the anniversary. This wasn't. This isn't the same poor soul, is it? When you say the 30th anniversary of his killing,
Yes.
what year was Harry? Were Harry and Meghan at a
At that, no,
service?
no, they weren't. They weren't at They weren't at that service. I don't think they were in the UK. I don't know if Meghan's been
Okay,
back much. Yeah, they weren't there. I don't
this
think
is
there was
more
any
recent as
royal.
well.
Yeah, I don't think there was any royal representation apart from maybe their director of community engagement for King Charles. She was there, but outside of that, no.
Okay, and that's not the same woman who asked that sister where she's from. Because she worked for
No.
Camilla, I think.
She was one of Camilla's ladies in waiting or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a whole thing, and people were like, oh, but was it racist for her to ask where was she from? And it's like, you can ask somebody once and that's already a bit uncomfortable, but to persist in
Ugh.
asking them over and over and
When it
over
gets
again.
down to that fifth line of inquiry, I ask people, what is it that you want?
Yeah,
At that point, I
yeah.
tell people, well, you know what? Because in from the states, well, where? Well, born in Washington D.C. No, but where your well, my mom's from Chicago, my dad's from, but where, like when it
Yeah.
gets down to that fifth line, I'm like, well, I can tell you, on my father's side, we have the family Bibles that go back to the 1800s, and then
Mm,
basically you put a period, and I don't know, do you walk away or you really? I get confused because you're trying to figure out what is it that they really want to know, because it's
yes.
not a direct question in my mind. Where are you from? What do you mean? She's
Yeah.
standing there with a British accent. What do you mean? Where am I from? Where are you from? I don't
Yeah.
understand the question. But she's back on staff. I understand she was dismissed,
Yeah.
and then I think she's
Yeah,
back on staff.
they brought her back, and during that time, Ngozi received a lot. Ngozi was the woman that went as on behalf of Sister Space, one
Yes,
of the.
thank you. I
Yeah,
couldn't
she
remember her name.
received a lot of racist abuse during that time. People were just like relentless with it. They were reporting the charity for mishandling funds, which was a
I
falsehood. It was a
saw something
fallacy.
about
They
that.
just wanted
Yeah.
to do anything to really frustrate her until they met up again, and apparently she apologized in person. The countess, or whoever she was, the lady, she apologized, and yeah, and then they were able to bring her back on staff. So
You see,
it's
they try to discredit Sister Space in
yes,
the meantime,
yes,
and
yes,
then let an apology suffice enough to get reinstated.
yes,
Okay, well that's how it goes, isn't it?
yeah.
It's surprising that she was dismissed initially.
Yeah, because they knew how bad it was. They knew that there was no real way of getting around that. They knew how bad it was, but they were hoping that, you know, by her having this apology, doing this apology publicly and getting Sister Space to agree, that then it would just be the end of it. And I'm always supportive of whatever people want to do. That's fine. But I also feel like the pressure of being sent abuse constantly would also make you just want to say, yeah, you know what, it's fine. I accept your apology. That's it. Just, so you could just move on.
Well, absolutely. And your life's in danger. People are threatening
Yes.
you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's serious business. Talk about the stress level. And, you have to think about all the people around you, your staff, your colleagues. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's scary. It's really scary. Okay. How long have you been doing the Say Your Mind podcast? And how did it get started?
I've been doing it since 2017, the very, very end of 2017. I started Say
That's
Your Mind.
ages.
Yeah, but it's been super fun. Yeah, it just like, it has a life of its own. When I see people now, just I'm walking around, down the street randomly and they're like, "Oh, I love your podcast." It's still a bit kind of, it still throws me like, wow, yeah, people really tune in and this is what they do every
Cool.
Monday. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's a long time. So since 2017, that's a long time. That takes a lot of work.
Yes.
So it's taking a life on its own.
Yes.
So wow. So how long a life will it have? Can you tell? Is it going to tell? You're going to know when it's time to
Yeah,
move on.
I think I'll feel it. Um yeah, I think I'll feel it when, when it's time to kind of move on and do something else. But I do feel like in essence, Say Your Mind as it is might come to a close at some point, but not necessarily, I won't necessarily stop podcasting, but the identity of the show might change. So I might just end this and then start something else.
Yeah, because I'm also thinking that it's the type of thing that's constantly evolving. It doesn't have to change. It will be a
Yeah,
matter of when you maybe run out of energy because you never run out of ideas or talking or
right.
topics or anything for that. So tell us about okay, your acting career. How did it start? Are you formally trained? What's going on? You said you still were working through COVID. Tell us all about being a Black actress in the UK, or do I call you actor?
No,
Black
actress
actress?
is fine. Actress is fine.
Okay, Black actress.
Yeah, I think for me, I can't really. I don't know. I always feel a bit somehow about acting because I see my peers, in their big streaming movies, their big movies, worldwide and all of those things, or the TV series. And I haven't really done all of those things. I've directed quite a bit in theatre. I've acted quite a bit in theatre and just little bits here and there in terms of TV. But I think it's because they were willing to leave the UK and go to the US in order to get more roles. Because in the UK, due to the racism that we speak about, what that's very much just intertwined into absolutely everything in the UK. People weren't getting jobs, they weren't getting great roles, whether you're a writer, an actor, director, nothing. So, but once they, all of them sort of moved, or a lot of them moved to the US, they star in the global movies, they're in amazing series, but it's about wanting to take that leap, about being ready to take that leap, to just not try to have your whole destiny be ruined by Britain really. But in terms of working, social commentary has been where I've essentially flourished, and I think that in that regard, not to necessarily be cliche and say everything happens for a reason. I look around me now and I see that those same friends who are acting, who are doing these things, there are certain things they just can't speak up about, the most, even the clearest things that you should be able to say something about, you can't. And I feel like I'm blessed to
Wait a
be
minute,
able to speak
Kaleshi,
about those
fear
things.
for fear of not getting a role, getting
Yeah, 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 yeah. For fear of not getting a role, for fear of being taken off a role, all of those things. So they can't speak up in this, in the same way. They're not trying to rock any boats. I don't know if you saw recently, Ajoa Ando, she was in Bridgerton. Um, she said something about the coronation when, they were all stood on the balcony during the
Oh
coronation, and she said
yeah,
something about this awfully white or something, and she wasn't wrong.
yeah.
Like, there is no
Exactly.
diversity
What do
here,
the
and you're,
kids say? Where's the lie? Where's the
yeah,
lie? There was no
where's the lie? And no, they really came for her. They really came for her until she had to apologize. And that's, to me, the psychological warfare, where as it pertains to racism, where you are made to apologize for being right. So yeah, and she's an
Yeah.
actress, and after saying that, she would have to probably be careful regarding her roles. But remember, but just imagine, like, she was just making a very obvious statement, and it caused all of that
Mhm.
fuss.
Right. Yeah. I had forgotten about that because she did smooth that over, and thank God goodness people let that go. They seem to have let that go. Do
Yes,
you think they let
yes,
that? Okay, they let that go, so she can still be Dame. I can't think of her name on Bridgerton. The
yes,
lady. She's Dame. I know exactly who you mean. I can see her face.
yes,
She's
yes.
fierce, on and off screen. Okay, so when you say the social commentary, that's not exactly what the Black Heroines of London was, though. I mean, what was that? That was
Black
fabulous.
heroines of London.
Do you
Um,
remember this? Okay, this I found this. It was and this was a commercial partnership that you did. I have to go back and see what it was. But you got to talk about interesting Black women, unknown women in London when you
Oh,
were out.
right. Yeah. So, unknown Black British history. So that was, I think, with Uber. So
Exactly,
yeah, a
Uber.
couple of people were upset about that, actually.
What?
But yeah, there's a very weird woman that hangs around. She was very like, oh, well, why did you mention Olive Morris? She'd want nothing to do with Uber if she was still alive. And I just always find these situations interesting, because I'm just like, first of all, you don't know what people would have done, because the racism, the way society made them die so early, because Olive Morris died at a young age, like in as a young
Tragic.
woman, um,
Yeah.
and Olive Morris was formidable in terms of, I look at my energy, and sometimes we have this thing where we think that there wasn't anybody before us. Olive Morris is like my blueprint in terms of calling out what needed to be called out, but she was doing even better than that, like doing the groundwork, the first kind of Black bookstore that stocked books that we need in terms of learning our history. She helped with that. There were so many initiatives that she was running. She was part of the British Black Panthers. Like, she was so wonderful as an activist and as a commentator, but maybe at that time you wouldn't have called it that. So when Uber reached out to me and they said, we're doing this kind of initiative where we want, because I don't know if you've been around, but in Britain we have things called blue plaques. So they put these blue plates or plaques
Hmm.
in places
Hmm.
where people famous have once lived, or notable people have lived.
I've
And
seen
so
them
I
with Frederick Douglass.
Yes. So I was saying that, well, we need we've got, bits and bobs for like Olive Morris and all the women that I mentioned. But I said we need to have these. These are the people that we need more things for, because they're wonderful, and people should know this history. So if you're saying, oh, Olive Morris wouldn't have wanted anything to do with Uber, but through Uber, for want of a better pun, I'm using Uber as a vehicle, because Uber has access to so many people to teach them about Black heroines that they wouldn't otherwise have known of. And that is a proper, that's a major malaise. That's a sickness in Britain, in that Britain does not know its history. So using that opportunity to teach
Yeah.
people about wonderful Black women who have done incredible things, why not?
Why not? And it is a malaise. America has it as well. Well, all of the colonizers
Yes.
have it, and the people that have been colonized, they don't know. A lot of us don't know as well. But I love, like you say, not to make a pun, but a perfect vehicle. Yes, it was.
Mm.
Um, Now, what is this tarot card reading that you do? I don't understand what tarot card is. I don't know. Can you hear my windows open and all of a sudden somebody's doing yard work? I don't know
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
can hear
that's coming through a little bit.
that. Okay, I'm going to close that. Um, of course, they stop now, but they'll be back if I don't close that window. Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. What is tarot card reading? I just don't understand or know what it is. So
Oh
educate
well,
me.
tarot cards are part of like esoteric divination. So the belief system is that you take either the cards fall out when you're shuffling the deck, or you pick cards from there's 78 cards in a deck. It's called the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Interestingly, the illustrator of the very original deck was a biracial woman that actually designed it. And the 78 card decks, or sorry, the
Wait
78
a minute.
cards,
The original, what year are you talking about?
1700s.
Okay, wow. So the 1700s, the sister was into this so much, or she was just picked as an illustrator. You know
So
that type
sorry,
of
so it
thing?
says here 1909. My apologies.
Oh,
1909 was when
okay,
the deck was
1909.
first published by the
Mm-hmm.
Rider Company, and Pamela Coleman Smith. That was the woman who illustrated the deck.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's like the quintessential tarot deck, the Rider Waite. They used to call it the Rider Waite's Tarot. They didn't even initially have her name there, and then over time it became Rider Waite Smith to include her. And so how it came about was so he was an academic and a mystic. They knew him as A.E. Waite, and he gave Pamela instructions as to this card needs to look like this and this card needs to look like this. And then she designed it, and then it came out. And yeah, it's over the years, people have come up with their own interpretation, still following the guide of what each card is meant to look like. So there are four suits, kind of like if you were playing with playing cards. There are four suits. We've got pentacles, swords, cups, and pentacles, swords, cups, and wands. So wands represent fire, swords represent air, pentacles represent earth, and cups represent water, which are all the elements that we need in order to sustain life, really.
Mhm.
And so all of those elements are present within us. And so when you go through this card deck and these cards fall out, usually I'm sorry, there are 22 major arcana within the deck of 78. The 22 major arcana, or the 22 major life themes, do exactly that. They speak to a life theme. So if you pulled a major arcana card, it will be more talking about the energy around your life at the moment, right? And then the minor arcana are like the day-to-day things. So you might get a few minor arcana that come out, and that's speaking to what's happening in your day-to-day life. So yeah, I could do it for you now
Mhm.
if you want. I've got my deck here.
Please. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Yes. Okay.
I've got my deck here.
Now,
So let's
because
see.
I'm a yoga instructor, I study Ayurveda. Um, but when you mentioned, we talk about the elements that you mentioned, the four elements, and
Yes.
how they're all present in the body. So I was just kind of silent there, thinking, trying to figure out, wow,
So what would you want us to like have a quick peek at? What element, what area of your life would you want to have a quick peek at?
what are the possibilities?
Endless,
I can be
endless.
endless. Oh, really?
Mm.
What about this? I have high blood pressure and I want to get it down without medication. Can I look at something so specific like that?
Yeah, I can get specific like that. Let's see
Health.
what it comes up.
Okay.
Health. So, what
Yes.
do we have for health? Healthy. Let's see what comes up. So, Eight of Wands, Nine of Wands. Interesting. Four of Pentacles. Okay. An Ace of Swords. So the eight, you've got lots of fire that comes up. But I picked three cards, or three cards came out. Two are wands, fire energy, and then Four of Pentacles in reverse is earth energy. So if I'm reading this, Eight of Wands, when we see it, it's depicted as arrows, eight arrows moving in really quickly. So it's like messages coming in really quickly. And then we've got the Nine
Mm-hmm.
of Wands, which speaks to somebody just working a lot, right? And then we've got the Four of Pentacles, which makes us think about financial security. So the Eight of Wands in reverse would likely make me think that there is advice that you're not taking, there's advice that you're not taking that's probably very, very useful to you, and probably about because I'm seeing deer, rabbits. The particular deck I'm using is called This Will Hurt Tarot deck. It's really beautifully
Oh
illustrated.
wow.
And so there's all of these animals running as if they're running away from something, right? And so this makes me think about maybe there are homeopathic suggestions that have been made to you that you're just like, oh no, I don't know, or maybe not right now. And then we've got the Nine of Wands here, which also makes me think about your work. Maybe you're working way too much, or that your mind is very, very preoccupied. So in this deck, there's a figure sitting down and they're writing and they're writing, and they're like chewed up pencils that are meant to depict the wands behind them. They've chewed their pen, they've chewed their pencil, and they're working so much. And then we've got the Four of Pentacles, where it's a man in a green suit, holding on tightly to a pentacle, holding on tightly to the coin. Another coin is right there, almost like by his sacral region. And then there are two coins that he's putting one foot on each. So what I pick up here is that take the advice that's coming in. There are different ways, or if the advice isn't here yet, there are people who are going to suggest certain things to you that you should consider if you're wanting to go down the natural homeopathic route. But on top of that, you've got to slow down. You've got to slow down. Like, you're working yourself into a rut, especially almost like taking on other people's responsibilities for them as well. Somebody else needs to do research about something. You're like, no, I'll do it for you. I'll look into that for you. You're using up a lot of energy, a lot of fire for other people, to the point where it's burning you out. And then the Four of Pentacles here, it tells me that the root of a lot of this is financial, like wanting to make sure that you've got financial security, that everything feels good. Maybe it's financial security that you're thinking about, oh, I want to have this for my family, my relatives, or I want to have this for myself. Like, there is that sort of a bit of worry there, and you're being asked to like not worry in that way, because the real wealth is actually your health. So, you know, chasing coins to the detriment of your body and your blood pressure won't bode well in the long run. And if it's, you know, finances that you're worried about in terms of maintaining your health, it sounds counterintuitive, but you've got to focus on your health in order to bring the abundance in.
Oh, wow. You were spot on. My doctor just told me, my sweetest doctor, just a list of things that I have to do that she wants me to do before I see her in the fall. I haven't started not one of those. I got that advice, I guess, 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And they're all natural, like you said, homeopathic. And she doesn't want to put me on meds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that. Yeah, the fire thing, because also, like I said, with the Ayurveda, I'm Pitta. I have a lot of Pitta, which is fire.
Wow.
I know, you're over here blowing my mind, girl. And yeah, I am the type that won't delegate or will just take on stuff for other. And I am, you know, trying to manage two households. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And then the financial thing, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think, not specifically like, you know, worrying about like roof over your head thing, but always thinking, yeah, because my dad lived to 95, my mom's 93. I'm thinking financial long term like that. Like, how long am I, can I
Yes.
go long term?
Yes.
What's that going to be like? So, yeah, wow, you were right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
My
that.
pleasure. And I think that that's ultimately it. I think the best way to explain tarot is to do the tarot. Do you see? So the exchange that happened between us energetically, now you posed the question, I answered the question, but I'm answering it by us sharing your energy, right? And then I'm then using that to decode the quote unquote random cards that have come out. So
Yeah.
they're amazing in that way, and it's practice. I don't believe that, oh, you know, I'm the only one that can do this, or only a few people can do this. We are all capable of doing this if we sit down and learn what the cards mean, because we were always meant to have a direct connection to our creator, to the divine. And I guess, you know, more dogmatic schools of thought would always have you believe that there needs to be an intermediary, because historically, you know, people couldn't read, right? The working class couldn't read. So somebody would tell them, for instance, what the Bible said, or this or that. And if we think about the enslaved African people, it was against the law for them to learn to read and write. So somebody
Even
else
to
had to tell
read.
you.
Yeah.
Yes. And so
Girl,
we had always
against a lot
believed,
of reading. Right. Can you imagine?
yeah, right. And so we then,
So basically, they're telling you it's against the law to think.
yes,
You can't have
exactly.
thoughts.
Exactly. And to have your thoughts then dictated by somebody else. And I think that we haven't necessarily let go of that belief system. And so I understand why people are like, oh, tarot is demonic and da 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 da, because they vilify what they don't understand. Where actually I think that this is an egalitarian manner or mode of spirituality that allows for us all to be able to tap into our own divine wisdom. Even if you don't believe in, oh, something out there is telling me something, what the cards allow you to do is tap into your subconscious, because you always know the answer, you always know the way to go, you know. And having these 78 cards helps you to decode the images, like you decode the images and then your answer's right there.
And you know, when I do get the signal or hear, I should say recognize, because you say we always know the answer is always within us.
Mm.
You know, and you know, we just call it our gut. When I
Mm-hmm.
ignore it, like when it's screaming and I ignore it, it's always a disaster. It always is
Yes.
a disaster.
Yes, because and I love that you mentioned the gut, because our body always remembers. So I'm learning quite a bit about human design at the moment, which is an amalgamation of a tarot, sorry, not tarot, astrology, I Ching, and two other spiritual modalities, and it brings them all together. And there are different types of people in human design. For so we've got generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and manifestors, as well as reflectors, so five. And all of us are one of those things. And for some people, they have, well, the basis of it is that human design says that our minds are easily conditioned by society. There wouldn't be so many racists, sexist, homophobes if it wasn't possible for our minds to be conditioned, right? But our body always remembers the way to go. Like your body will naturally go to where it needs to be. You know, like sometimes you might, oh, I'm just going to pop into that shop today. And because you popped into the shop, it delayed you. So when you came out the shop, you bumped into a friend of yours that you haven't seen in years. But it's the body that's doing that, because the body actually knows what needs to be done. So when people talk about gut instinct, it's the body knowing that, this is not right for you. But then we let our minds take over and be like, no, I'm going to do this because blah, blah, blah. And as you say, usually we end up in a disaster. But if we can go with when our gut gives us butterflies in the best way, and we keep going with that feeling all the time, we will naturally end up in the best kind of version of the life that we're meant to live.
Mm. So just say that one more time. The body, the mind, no, the body remembers.
Yes, the body remembers. The
And
body
that
knows where
shows up
exactly we're
in
meant to go and where we're meant to be. Yeah.
and that shows up in butterflies or like you know your gut instinct or how
Yeah, it
can
shows up differently for different
amen.
people. So if you've got that it depends on which kind of authority you've got. So I've got sacral authority within human design, which means that if I literally feel that tingle, that almost electricity within my sacral region, then that's the thing I'm meant to do. But if I feel nothing, then I'm not meant to do that thing. So when I want to make a video about some kind of social commentary or something that's happened, if I don't feel that excitement that I feel like is generated from my sacrum, I don't need to make that video. In fact, if I make that video or if I say that thing, it's likely to be received in the wrong way.
You know,
So
now I don't know if you've heard of an author, I can't think of his name now, but he wrote The Essentialist something. But he basically said what you just said in another way. Because I was
wow.
just worried about people who aren't as enlightened or in tune with, you know, it took me forever to realize that, oh, that's my gut talking to me. I'm ignoring it, you know, to
Mm,
get into to like what you feel. But another way, like he said it, that was simple, that resonated with me. If somebody asks you to do something, doesn't matter what it is. If it's not an immediate yes in your mind, it should be a no.
yeah. And that's really interesting, because there are some people who, for instance, within human design, some people need to be asked 3 times before they know if that's the thing that they should do. And some people, they need to do something where they are emotionally neutral, not when they're very, very happy or very, very sad. They should not make decisions when they are in a definite emotional state. They need to make decisions from a place of neutrality, because oftentimes, let's say that they agree to something when they're super happy, they're in a great mood that day. Then by the time the thing comes along, they're like, why the hell did I agree to this? Or they
Ooh,
turn
I've been
something
there.
down. Yeah, they turn something down because they're feeling really sad that day. And then later on, they're like, oh, I should have done that. So for them, in terms of when it comes to human design, they actually just need to make the decision when they feel nothing. So
Wow.
it's so fascinating. And because I've been trying to implement these things into my day-to-day life, I'm finding that I generally I experience more joy, because ultimately, knowing that I need to feel excited about something before I do it lets me know all the things I'm not excited about. And funnily enough, the things that, pardon me, I'm not excited about and I don't want to do, life just happens to find a way to provide somebody that can do it for me. I looked at, we were going through all of the things that I've done in terms of my career and what I'm doing, especially with raising my son as well.
You've done
And
tons.
yeah, I'm not excited about cleaning. I'm not excited about cleaning, right? Because I've got so many other things I'm doing. I can clean. I'm good at cleaning up, of course, but I'm not excited by it. I don't want to do it. And the moment I admitted it to myself, that it was just one day, and I was like, you know what? I don't like this. I've got so many other things to do. This does not excite me. That afternoon, I get a message. Oh, just random. I don't know if you'll be interested, but my mum's a cleaner, and she can come and clean for you,
Oh, what a
and this is her
godsend.
rate. And I was just like, yeah, let's do it, and that's it. The moment you can admit to yourself, I don't like doing this thing, you then create space for somebody who does like doing that thing to enter and save you from having to do that thing, so you can focus on the things that you do like, because everything in our life is created from love. Us, as we exist, we're created from a source of love. When we talk about, oh, namaste, the God in me, like, is honoring the God in you, because we all hold that, right? So in order for us to have that come through in its best manifestation, we have to be in a zone of love. And if you're doing something that you do not love, that you do not like, you keep moving yourself out of alignment.
That's so in line with the eight limbs of yoga and asana, the movement that we do, like the exercise part. That's only one of the eight limbs of yoga, and that's not even number one. I think it's number five or six or something. But
Mm,
one of it, and I know I'm not going to remember all the names of it, but I know I went through and I kind of worked out how I can live each limb of yoga, and so I try to have my daily practice, the asana
mm-hmm,
practice, yoga mat. But
mm.
one of it was that I'm not go, I'm everything that I do, I'm gonna do with gladness and joyful.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
gonna do it, if I can't do it with joy and gladness, I'm not gonna do it.
Simple,
So that's another
simple.
way to, yeah, to judge if this is the right thing to do, like to tap into with your instincts. There
Yes.
are some things that we have to do that we don't want to do, or that just maybe aren't going to give you joy, like going to the dentist. But you can even
Yeah,
approach that with a different mindset and say, I am giving this time to my health, to my well being. I'm caring.
exactly.
Yeah,
But
my
even in
oral
that
health is
sense,
important
yeah,
to
but
my home.
even in that sense, it's like, why don't I like going to the dentist? Because then it's like, if we can get to the root of the why, then we understand really what's going on. Do I not like going to my dentist because I don't particularly like my dentist? Maybe I need to look at another dentist, right? Or do I not like
Exactly.
the dentist because maybe there's some childhood trauma linked to going to the dentist? Okay, so I
I
need
had a
to look
bad
at that.
experience. Yeah.
Yes. So I have to look at that. So when sometimes I know that something is necessary, because I don't believe that God, life, however you see it, would put me in a situation where I'm being forced to do something that I really do not want to do, but you're telling me it's for my own good. Like, there has to be a middle ground. So why don't I like doing that thing? If it's so good
But
for
you
me,
know
why don't
what?
I like it?
Isn't that the parents? Have you heard, caught yourself saying that to your child? Because
No,
it's what
but
you're learning.
I'm, that's so interesting. You say that, because I'm practicing not doing that, because I think that, we just talked about the mind being conditioned. The main propagators of our minds being conditioned are our parents. They tell us so many things that we live our life by, that if you ask them now or sat
Yes,
them down, they can't really explain why. They'll just go, it's always been that way. Oh, it's because what you're
because their
meant to
parents
do.
told them.
Exactly. Exactly. So I try not to do that with him. I don't say I try to avoid this hierarchical structure of like, well, I've said it, so you have to, or so you have to do it, or this is the way. No, like I can break it down to him why it's for his own well-being. So he could say, I don't want to brush my teeth. All right. I understand that you don't want to brush your teeth, but here's what happens when you don't brush your teeth. Right. So I explain it that way rather than you've just got to, you've just, no, 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 no. And this is why you should, because I know that you like looking cute. And if those teeth fall out of your mouth, you're not going to look very cute. So just bear that in mind. And then he's like, okay, fine. I'll brush my teeth then.
Uh-huh. You break it down to, yeah, you break it down to why. And he doesn't need to know about, bacteria and what,
Right. Because then he'll start asking the questions about, oh, but why does it fall out? Oh, well, there's a thing called plaque, tartar, and bacteria. And then then you can
Exactly.
get into the science of it. But I've got to immediately appeal to what I know that he likes. Oh, you like eating those foods? You like eating, well, if you don't have your teeth, how are you going to eat them? So I appeal to what he immediately is interested in and then cover the bases later on with the extra information.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Even at that young age, the mind can grasp um what is it? I don't want to say certain concepts, but repercussions, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah,
Consequences. He understands consequences.
consequences.
Yeah.
That's
He
it.
understands consequences. And I just don't, when I think back on it, I understood consequences from being hit as a child. That people shouldn't have to learn consequences through violence, you know? Um,
Mhm.
and so these are just things I'm practicing, but I'm not necessarily the gentle parenting kind. No, I just like to implement common sense and empathy. Common sense and empathy, like let's use that, like just do that, because if you're in the wrong, I'm going to let you know that you're in the wrong. um and yeah, it's just a fascinating journey so far. He's almost 4, thank God. And I'm
No, yeah,
learning
because
about myself as we go.
because you navigated that through. Did you
COVID,
deliver
yeah.
in the? Yeah, did you deliver during
No, just
the
before. So I had him in
time?
September 2019. Had him in
Okay.
September 2019 and took him to a job that I had to do with a Dove in New York in February 2020. And then March 2020, boom,
Oh my
everything was locked
gosh.
down. Yeah.
Were you
So he
trapped in
saw
New
the
York,
outside for
or
like
you got
6 months.
back?
Hmm?
Were you trapped in New York, or you made it back to the
No,
UK?
made it back, was just there for a few days,
Okay.
in New York. But it was just interesting that everything, and I could feel it that time that I was in New York as well, just traveling. I could feel that, oh, something is about to go off, like something is about to happen,
Mm.
and then so much happened in 2020, so much.
So much. So what was that like? So you were isolated, you were shut down with a baby, with a infant during COVID. How scary was that? Were you able to have medical appointments for him, wellness appointments, get
Yeah,
formula?
I
Were you
mean, yeah.
breastfeeding?
Yeah, I was breastfeeding for a while. I think I breastfed for 17 months. That was a grueling
That's a
experience.
long time, but that's
Yeah.
how it goes. So you didn't
Yeah.
have to worry about food shortage.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
me, maybe unlike most people, I enjoyed lockdown. I did. It was a chance to slow down
Yes.
because I wonder if I would have slowed down otherwise. It was a chance for me to sit down and really address my kind of habits around productivity, especially as a Black woman. Like, you have to think, when I'm being asked to rest or to stay still, what is my worth linked to if I'm not making something, if I'm not doing something? It gave me lots of time to run, right? Because the streets were empty. So I'd go on really like long runs. Um, yeah, it just gave me a lot of time to be. And funnily enough, during those runs is when I started making my videos, my post-run videos, and they went absolutely viral because people were at home. People were also being still, so they had time to take in what I was saying. And I don't know if that would have happened otherwise.
One of your pandemic blessings.
Right? So Yeah, there were many great things that came out of it for me, but at the same time, the catastrophe of so many people losing their lives because of because of the inherent um kind of inequities of this society that we're asked to participate in, it made things more glaring than before. Why are black and brown people disproportionately affected by COVID, and why is it that like the West was so excited about COVID hitting Africa, but it didn't affect Africa in the way that it affected the quote unquote developed world? And why it was so interesting to me who they were expecting to die.
Well, and like I say, based in Sweden, even the black community in Sweden was hard as this. I was like, you can't get a break anywhere.
No, you can't. You can't. And it showed, it showed a lot of things. So when people are like, oh, well, maybe you are all just predisposed to this and that. No, no, no. We were exposed to racism. We were exposed to racism for a number of centuries. So the disparities don't just disappear. We don't just all become equal because of COVID.
Well, I know
Whatever
in
disparities were
Sweden,
there are
yeah.
exacerbated. Yeah.
Maybe you have a similar expression. If America catches a cold, Black America gets COVID or gets the
Yes.
flu or something.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But I know in Sweden, for example, in one area, it was among the, I want to say Somali community or Somali
Mm-hmm.
Swedish community, and lived differently, multi-generational. We're sure if information was being shared. Um, a lot of people, a lot of the tragedy that happened in Sweden was people working in care homes and coming home and maybe giving it to their families or bringing it in, vice
Exactly.
versa, before people realized what was going on. A lot of people of African descent in Sweden have those kind of jobs. Um,
Yeah.
so higher, just a higher risk factor, or as what are they we calling them? Essential workers.
Essential workers, frontline workers. I was literally thinking about that now. Essential workers, frontline workers, and yet you couldn't pay them
We're
for the
there.
risk that they were taking. Which demographic usually works in those fields that's taking that risk? And as you say, that they're the
Us.
ones that will
Yeah.
then take this back to their families. The people that were
Hmm.
complaining about, oh, my nanny can't be with me because ja 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 ja. Your nanny also has a family. Like your cleaner also has a family. So more than ever,
Yeah.
it really did show us like the inequity in society. And it's interesting that people are kind of trying to kind of brush past it now, not really focus on it now.
Well,
um
Kelechi, I'm so glad you said that because it scares me. We act like COVID's over. It's not over.
it's not over. It's not over. It's not over at
It's
all.
not over. I guess it's manageable. Do you feel it's like it's manageable in the UK? Do people you see no masks at all in Sweden? Maybe in the very
Yeah,
older
no
trail.
masks really in the UK. It's almost like people just
Okay.
don't want to think about it anymore. They just don't want to. Anytime you mention anything to do with masks or lockdown, no, they're like, don't infringe on my rights. I want to be out. I
No.
want to do this. I want to do that. And so it made me think about how do we govern people for their own good, and I think maybe that moved me more towards considering politics. I don't know where I'm at with it now. I've always made
Ooh,
jokes
how
throughout the years
exciting.
that, yeah, I've always made jokes throughout the years that, oh, well, one day, watch, you know, I'm going to be this and I'm going to do that in terms of politics. But I was only ever joking. But now it's a real consideration. But we'll see. We'll see.
That's the best news I heard all day. And you know what? I'm going to end on a good note, as they say, because you've given me a fantastic hour. I couldn't ask for a better time.
Thank
And
you.
to, oh, thank you. I'm honored. So, yeah, I just wish you the best. I just have such a
Thank you
girl
so
crush on
much.
you. I wish you the best. Yeah. So I'm just going to thank you and wish you the best for the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very so much. Speak to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.